Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Chewie, we're home.
I am tempted to squee with joy after today. Today has been such a good day in the land of media and entertainment.
I know. The new Hateful Eight teaser came out today.
Squee! What?
What? Huh?
Well, clearly you and I have a different interpretation of squee with joy.
No, I'm just teasing.
I don't want to talk about it because it's my trailer, so I don't want to talk about it yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. But I do want to talk about this.
Oh.
And while I'm at it, let me tell you about that.
This and that.
Daredevil. Can we talk about Daredevil?
I've seen the first 2 episodes.
Okay. What'd you think?
I'm enjoying it so far. I did read a comment by somebody who made I think a fairly valid point that they don't do enough emphasis of him using his other senses to counteract his blindness. And I mean, there's little bits here and there, but right now it just seems like he's just a pretty kick-ass guy who just fights really well.
Yeah, you got to be patient with that one because that's one thing that in my opinion, I had that same opinion the first couple of. I actually had problems with the first like 3 or 4 episodes. I thought it was just didn't quite find the rails, you know. Mm-hmm. And there is, when they finally introduce who the character who becomes Kingpin, I think it finds its own. And I think that they dribble out backstory over the course of the 13 episodes. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying I think. I know. I finished the series this week. So they dribble it out all the way to the very final episode of this thing. You're looking at flashback material about kind of how he was trained and how he did his thing. So it really pays off, but it pays off in little bites, little tiny nuggets.
Okay.
The series gets, or the show gets much, much better. And I found myself really binging toward the end, like the staying up way too late kind of thing. Just got, well, it's just auto plays on Netflix. It's not my fault. It just keeps playing. And so, but I quite enjoyed it, and I'm anxious to hear what you think once you get past the hump, the kind of new series hump.
I mean, I've enjoyed the first 2 episodes so far. So, I mean,
yet there's still a hump, Andy. Just get ready.
That's good to know. It's good to know.
That's my thing. What did we do? I introduced my children to Back to the Future, the trilogy. We did the whole trilogy this week.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Busy week.
It was a busy week. Well, we bought ourselves some time. Let's just say that. And so that was really, really fun. I had forgotten just how much fun it is to watch it with people who haven't seen it. Right. And how even a series of films that's 20 years old, there's still a lot of joy when they do these things. It's such an incredible formula that works so well in all 3 movies. Same script, different set. Perfect.
Right. It's perfect. And it's not to make you feel older, but it's 30 years old.
Yeah. Stay off my side.
You know what we've been doing over here?
Tell me.
We've been Fast and Furiousing.
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
Catching up now because, we decided we're going to go see 7 in the theaters. And so we've plowed through the first 5. I'd say we were moving pretty fast and furious. And so we 6 just arrived. We're going to watch that one this weekend and then hopefully sneak off to 7 if we get a chance.
That's awesome. Now, do you remember when because I think I reported every week my Fast and Furious update.
I think it was a 1-week update because I think you did it all in a week.
I think you may be right. Like I said, every week I diligently reported. And I'm trying to think now if you were giving me any guff for binging that series at the time.
No, I enjoyed the first 2. It's just I heard the third one was bad, and so I kind of stopped.
Did that hold up? Do you think it was bad?
I didn't think it was bad. I definitely felt it was weaker, and I think it's because it was a different tone from the first 2. It was much more, there was no crime. I mean, he was dealing with the Yakuza, but there was no crime that he was actively trying to stop or involved in. He was just, it was an honor thing. So it was totally different. But man, watching those cars drift was pretty stunning.
It has been since then that I've seen those things, since however many years it's been. And I don't quite remember this, but I just heard Chad Stoops, great friend of the show, was telling me last week. He said you actually have to watch number 3 after number 5.
Right, because the guy, his friend in number 3, is in 4 and 5, and I mean, yeah.
So I can't remember. Does it make more sense if you think of it that way?
Well, that's my wife and I kept saying was like, okay, so wait a minute. So this all happens because that even happens in number two, where I mean, in number four, some of it happened before number two. So it's like trying to piece together.
Right.
Okay, wait a minute. They jump around a little bit chronologically, and so yeah, the rest of four and five all happens before three. And I
Okay.
don't know what happens in six because I haven't seen that one yet.
All right. Well,
But
can't wait.
the lead from number three is in number seven.
Well, that's good to know. I need to sneak off and see that myself, but not this weekend because we have a big show coming up this weekend, right?
That's right.
You excited for this? It's getting really great reviews, probably somewhere, maybe in Russia. Not here so far.
Someone's giving it some good reviews somewhere, right?
Yes, Child 44 is, what did we last see? He's cranking a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes.
30 now.
30 and
30,
falling.
Yeah. 30.
Child
I'm trying
44.
to check and see if there's anybody on it who's given it a good review. Let's see. Look at somebody out there. Some critic has to love it, right?
Apparently not.
Yeah.
So we're jumping in on a film board on Saturday night. So she'll be live later this weekend, and so be on the lookout for that.
There
Child
you go.
44.
Yeah.
As always, I'm excited for what Tommy Handsome is going to bring to his Flickchart song. It's always that to look forward to. I wonder if he'll do it in Russian.
I was going to say Russian and in minor key.
Yes.
Kind of like the opening of Hunt for Red October.
It'll be totally. So that's coming up. Other than that, do we have any other news?
I don't think so.
Let's tell the people where we're from.
Where are we from?
Hey everybody, it's The Next Reel. I'm Pete Wright. That there is Andy Nelson.
Howdy do.
And we spoil movies somewhat belatedly. Tonight on the show, I think the fifth in our 2015 Film Noir series with Billy Wilder's Ace in the Hole from 1951. But before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you're a cheat, if you know how to rig the system and you're not afraid to do it for your own personal gain, then you're just the kind of louse who might like to head over to Instagram.com/thenextreel and play The Next Reel's Instagram, #PonyPrize, #GuessTheMovieChallenge. Andy, how did we do against the members of the press this week?
This was a fun week because the images were very tantalizing, but nobody could quite pin it. And so there were just guesses all over the map. And it's clearly a genre picture. I think that helped people start throwing a lot of fun guesses out. But it did take until the fourth image, sorry, when G. Larson again came out and was able to nail it. It is, in fact, Cliffhanger. Good old Rennie Harlan with a little dangling from the mountaintops action.
Man, you remember when he lets her go?
Oh yeah. And do you remember? Do you remember the version of that in, I think it was Ace Ventura 2?
Yes, wasn't it like a
little
raccoon? It was a raccoon.
Right?
That's right. When nature calls.
Oh yes.
That's
Chicago.
Well played. Well played. That's fantastic. G. Larson. Are we sure it's G. Larson? Because I sure call him Glarsed a lot.
It looks like Glarsed, but it actually is Gustav Larsen.
But I mean, really,
when you click on his name. But we could just go with Glarsed.
I mean, really, he's a nice guy. He's active with us on Twitter. He's great recommendations, and yet I really want to call him Glarsed because it feels like he's my friend from another planet.
Well, there you go.
All right. Well, it's a title of honor. Let's just say that.
It is. It is the title of honor.
Andy, I think it's time. Let's do boop beep boop. Woo. I'm gonna go first.
You in the back.
Star Wars Force Awakens teaser trailer 2. Is it really a tease anymore? Yes, it is. The answer is yes.
It's a very good tease.
Oh my goodness, this makes me so excited. And let me tell you why in moderately more detail. Because I got an email today from someone who has admitted a change of heart. Would you like to hear this email?
I'd love to hear that email.
It says, seeing Han and Chewie actually made me almost start crying. I'm pretty much wholly invested in this now. My box that my inner child was locked in has been shattered. Andy.
Yeah. What can I say?
And you know what? That is so funny because I was just like that too. Man, when he goes, Chewie, we're home. Oh, crushing. Yeah. And you know what? It's not even middle-aged men who react that way. My kids, I just showed them the trailer, and the same thing. They were over the moon when Chewie and Han showed up. Over the moon.
My daughter, bless her. She watched it with me, and then she's like, "Who's that man at the end with Chewbacca?"
Oh my gosh!
It's like, honey, that was Han Solo. She's like, "What?" But he's so old.
You shut your mouth, girl. You shouldn't.
Well, but then I was like, okay, I never actually explained to her that these movies were actually made a long time ago.
Right.
And so it kind of threw her a little bit.
Well, remember I was complaining about the digitals last week? Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I went ahead and bought them.
Okay.
And I watched we're starting our series this week. And we're doing the I don't think I can officially call it the machete order, right? Because we're including episode 1. But we're doing,
it's like the pre-machete order, whatever that.
Whatever that nerd 2.0 version of it. Anyway, so
I think we should call it the Glarced version.
Or it's the Glarced version. That's right. It's the 451-236, and so we're starting that on Friday night. Very excited about that.
Excellent.
And we just opened it up and watched the first 2 minutes, the opening crawl and the and
the attack
on the Imperial cruiser, right? And so it looks great. It looks really, really, really great. It is so clean, and it made me question when it was made. Like there's very little in there in terms of the design that looks dated. It's sort of amazing. Mm-hmm. It's been cleaned up so well. So I'm just not accustomed to seeing it that clean because I've never watched it, bigified on my TV.
Yeah. The Blu-ray.
Yeah, I don't have the Blu-ray.
I will say the one thing that I do have that you don't have on my pretty version is the 20th Century Fox music and opening. Well, I saw the new Disney
terrible.
Version, and it's really bad.
What is good is that Star Wars 20th Century Fox still retains the rights for Episode 4, and so the opening I still get the fanfare for that one.
Oh, that's good.
But the other 5 are Disney. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's like let's pull a few pieces from the score from a few different places in the films and mush it all together.
Really ugly. So anyway, that's my update. But the secondary update, and I'm going on way too long about Star Wars, but here's the thing. The other thing that came out is our friend of the show, DC Barnes, he won the Force for Change contest and was sent with a friend, J. Trent Adams, to London, to Pinewood Studios to be on set. And he hasn't been able to talk about his experience at all. Well, they released today the teaser trailer as part of the Star Trek experience or Star Trek celebration. The teaser trailer of his experience, he and Trent, there. And so the stories are starting to leak out about how they treated him, and they show him shaking hands with all the important people. J.J. Abrams. It's really, really great. So you can find that on our Facebook page and link to it there. And congratulate DC and Trent, because what a great opportunity. They were good fans.
Watching them was almost as good as watching the trailer. Like their reactions to everything, it was like living all of my childhood fantasies through them as they were like boarding the Millennium Falcon and putting on the Stormtrooper helmet and everything.
I know when it turns over and Trent looks at the camera and he says, "There are no words." That's exactly what I was thinking in my head. There are no words. And I'm here. I'm watching a 2-minute teaser of this experience, and it was that great. So anyway, it was really fun.
Absolutely.
All right, what's yours? I've used up most of your time, so you have 30 seconds.
Can I have 33?
Yes, that's all you get.
Oh, my trailer is for a completely different type of movie. It's
Ace in the Hole 2.
Right, it's the 33. You're tying in nicely with Ace in the Hole. This is the story that we all are familiar with of the Chilean miners, the big mining accident that happened back in 2010, the Copiapó mining accident, where the mine collapsed and 33 miners were trapped underground. And this is a film of their harrowing story of surviving underground for 69 days, battling with lack of food, lack of oxygen, just everything. Their families struggling outside, trying to deal with it. And it looks like a really powerful story. I mean, I knew it was a powerful story just from watching all of the news as it continued over the course of those 2+ months when it happened. But and then, of course, when they all came out, it was really kind of just an amazing story that they all survived. So I'm thrilled that we're going to get to see this experience theatrically and really get a sense of their journey. But what really excited me about the trailer is just looking at the cast. I was like, man, Lou Diamond Phillips is back. And it just got me so excited because I'm like, I mean, he's kind of just fallen off the map in so many ways. And he kind of pops up in things now and then. And he's one of those guys that I always enjoyed when I was young. I think La Bamba was on repeat for me when I was at that age, and Young Guns. I mean,
Young Guns was huge for me.
Yeah, just fantastic things that I watched all the time when I was young, and I just got very excited seeing him in this. And it's one of those things where it's kind of like watching Alive, where all of these Americans, I mean, at least they're more Hispanic Americans this time, are all playing Chileans. But, to sell to the movie-going public, I'm like, okay, that should be fine. Antonio Banderas is in there, Rodrigo Santoro as one of the government officials working up on top. Juliette Binoche pops up. That was a surprise. Bob Gunton is in there as the president. Gabriel Byrne is in there, and James Brolin. It's this crazy cast, and I'm I was kind of surprised by the actual star power that they got for this. Patricia Riggin is directing it, or it's probably Patricia. She's a Mexican director, and so it's like, I don't know. I feel like they're putting a lot of interesting pieces in place for this, and it makes it something I want to see. It looks pretty good.
I am very excited about it. I think the thing I'm most excited about is the sort of hodgepodge of languages that show up in the trailer. Like, it doesn't feel like a forced sort of like, it just is a very global, sort of a multi-language, multinational kind of experience. I really like that.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, it looks really exciting. It looks like when the trailer first starts to roll, you start thinking, oh, this is going to be a great sort of low-budget interpretation of some experience. And then, man, the mind caves in, and you're like, whew, this is an effects film. That was great.
Yeah.
It looks really, really good and terrifying.
Terrifying is the word. Being in that situation, it's just not a situation I ever want to be in.
Yeah, truly.
So it has no release date yet. It's set to release in Chile August 6th. So I don't know if in the U.S. it's going to be kind of looking for an August release date as well, or if it'll be before or after that. But hopefully it'll be sometime this summer, and we'll all get a chance to go check it out.
Excellent. All right, Andy. How'd you like to make yourself $1,000 a day? I'm a $1,000 a day newspaper man. You can have me for nothing.
Quiet, everybody! Listen to me! Listen!
Beneath this sinister mountain, a man is buried alive, trapped by a cave-in. And from every part of a shocked and anxious nation, the crowds stream to watch the desperate rescue crews fighting against time, battering their way to the barrier of solid rock, while far below, a daring reporter makes his way into the treacherous, crumbling tunnel that is the only lifeline between the helpless victim and the outside world.
You'll be out of here by tomorrow morning.
No, I won't. They'll never reach me by tomorrow morning.
You'll be out of here in 12 hours. Hang on!
Kirk Douglas has his greatest role as the reporter who would do anything for a story. Jan Sterling becomes a star of the first rank as the not-so-heartbroken wife of the man buried beneath the mountain.
Maybe we'll have a couple of drinks. Maybe you'll even take me out for a big evening, huh?
Why don't you wash that platinum out of your hair?
Phony, below-the-belt journalism, that's what it is.
Not below the belt, right in the gut, Mr. Boot. Human interest.
Nothing you've ever seen before has the tremendous human interest of Ace in the Hole. For here is a startling story of human emotions and human desires, played against the most exciting fight to save a man's life ever depicted on the screen.
Now, when Smollett comes, you can give him your orders. Tell him to go in through the cliff dwelling, shore it up, and get him out fast.
Not through the cliff dwelling. You can't get him out that way anymore.
All right, Andy, here we go. Ace in the Hole, 1951, from Billy Wilder. Written, directed, and produced by Billy Wilder, a first for him. Starring Kirk Douglas, Jan Sterling, Robert Arthur. It's an interesting film. Yeah. You love it. Is it like top of your list?
This, I hadn't seen this in a while, and I knew I liked it, but it really hit me in all the right ways this time. And this actually shot up so high that I would say it's now landed in my top 20 films. Yeah, this film, I was surprised at how much I just totally fell in love with this film. Everything about it, I just think is just spot on perfect. And I just was mesmerized from beginning to end.
It's a bittersweet film for me. I was mesmerized with some of it, and yet a fundamental piece of the film, a fundamental piece of the character of the film is missing for me that causes it to just end up sort of empty. Let me read the Criterion synopsis of it because I think it's pretty good. Billy Wilder's Ace in the Hole is one of the most scathing indictments of American culture ever produced by a Hollywood filmmaker. And nothing like a little hyperbolic language to kickstart a synopsis. Kirk Douglas gives the fiercest performance of his career as Chuck Tatum, an amoral newspaper reporter who washes up in the dead-end Albuquerque, happens upon the scoop of a lifetime and will do anything to keep getting the lurid headlines. Wilder's follow-up to Sunset Boulevard is an even darker vision, no-holds-barred expose of the American media's appetite for sensation that has gotten only more relevant with time. So that's what Criterion says. And I think that's a pretty good synopsis of the film. Is there anything you feel like that left out?
No, I think it does a pretty good job.
So here's the problem that I have with the film. I love the look of it. I love what they do with sort of the landscape, and the sort of role of the landscape in this in this situation. I love that it's not a strict caper film. It's a more insidious sort of crime, a more sort of cultural crime that is, painful to watch. The relationship between the media and the public is not in a great place. Sensationalism is obviously rampant, as I just read. It is getting more rampant over time. And this film tells a story through the lens of Kirk Douglas's Chuck Tatum, who's this disgraced reporter looking to worm his way back to the top of the heap. And the problem with that is that as he is going through the motions of manipulating this scenario, he's the bad guy, right? I mean, he's the guy that we don't like him. We don't like what he's doing. We know how this is inevitably going to end up. There's a guy stuck in a mine. He can't get out of the mine, and Chuck Tatum is manipulating the media to his own benefit at the expense of this man's life underground. And the media is going crazy. There's a huge, they bring a carnival into the middle of the desert. They've got the bands playing. There's a wonderful sort of insidious humor that is just interjected throughout it, which is really great. But the problem is all of this happens thanks to this sociopathic reporter. And maybe I'm just sort of biased, but I feel like the media doesn't need a sociopathic reporter to tell the story of how jaded it is. Like I don't enjoy watching the media be manipulated by this sociopathic reporter because I think the media kind of goes there on its own, and maybe he's it ends up being kind of a hollow journey for me.
Interesting.
I don't know if it is.
Yeah, I don't know if I completely agree with that. I mean, I definitely agree with the sense that the public is happy to go there on its own. The media is happy to go there on its own without the manipulation. But I think there is a level of manipulation that can happen. And I mean, coming from having worked on our documentary, The Joe Show, and seeing how manipulative they could be with what stories get told and what stories don't get told. I mean, seeing it firsthand, I think is a prime reason to feel that manipulation definitely happens. In the case of our documentary, it wasn't necessarily a news reporter who was manipulating it, but it was their PR manipulating what the media got.
Right. Well, and I don't want to make it sound like I believe that that bad actors don't exist. What I'm saying is, and having worked in a newsroom for a number of years, like I know that I guess I feel like the story would have been more interesting had it focused on the broader role of the press in creating this. Like having one guy who is a sociopath who's doing this for personal gain was told less of an interesting story and painted less of a moral lesson to me than had it been a discussion of all of the media that has created this. I think we get a much more interesting story as we look at, like Network, for example, where we have somebody he's not sociopathic. He's lost his mind in some degree, but he's frustrated by what has happened to the world of the media, and he's taking action against it. In this case, we have a guy who is actively destroying the media through his actions. And I think as an individual, it's not as strong a story as if we got to see kind of the whole.
Well, but I mean, I don't think he's actively setting out to kill this guy. I mean, you're making it sound like he is actively trying to kill this guy to sell the story.
No, and I don't necessarily think that's not what my intention is here. My intention is that he is not considering the well-being of the guy
right
beyond his need for the guy to stay alive so that he can keep the story going for longer.
Right. And in the end, get out. Like, I mean, he very clearly wants the guy to get out in the end because he
needs a payoff.
Ending.
Right. He needs a happy ending.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a dark story. And I mean, I guess I can kind of see your point, but at the same time, I feel that, there are people out there who are happy to manipulate a situation in order to make it better for themselves. And I think this is a very interesting look at that in the world of the press and how this particular reporter is willing to stoop to a level where he is actively bending the truth. He's embroidering his own truth. And it's an interesting look at lies versus what truth you choose to tell. And I like that there's this dark path that this particular character, Chuck Tatum, takes in order to get his high position back at a New York paper, and how he's willing to just kind of step on people to get there. Although I also am incredibly fascinated by him because he is this character that is very inspiring also to people. And I mean, you see how people just love him, and how even his little buddy, the photographer, just loves to kind of be around him, and actually is inspired to kind of step out of this dead end job that he essentially has at the paper in Albuquerque. Herbie is finally able to start branching out and actually doing something more. And I think that there's an interesting yin yang with a character like Chuck Tatum that can be so inspiring and get people out of actually actively doing something, while also showing us the danger of what can come of that when you cross the line and go too far. And it's more about you and your needs and what you're getting out of it, rather than doing your job and actually just putting it out for the people.
Yeah, he's masterful and charming, and that is much to the credit of Kirk Douglas. I think his performance is actually quite good. But you made me think of something in sort of the way I'm positioning this argument in my head, and I think I get why it didn't connect with me now. That I prefer a story about the darkness of the media to be about the darkness of the media as a whole, and our protagonist is the person showing us the contrast of what it looks like to fight against that norm. And those are the stories that I'm more interested in. Like, the media has gone crazy, and, you know, all of the press has come and created this massive circus outside of this thing, and they're just the piranhas at the gate. And our protagonist is the character who's saying, wait a minute, something is wrong here. Somebody has something to fight for. Now, whether he ends up dead at the hands of a stomping crazy mob or whatever, I mean, it can still go dark. But I feel like the lessons are stronger in that context. And in this film, everybody else is really kind of, going along with the flow. They all seem quite nice. We get some great, some of the great little digs at our sort of cultural fabric at the time. We've got people on a Ferris wheel or, on rides and things outside of this horrible tragedy going on in the mine. And yet our protagonist is a guy who is machining the whole thing. And I think there's just less of a contrast for us to be able to see what the lessons are. That's where I am.
I don't know. I guess I don't think that I think it's all there. I think it's very easy to see all the lessons. I didn't find any problem finding any of the lessons in it. And although you do bring up an interesting point as far as like just the personalities in the film and our story with our protagonist being this very dark character, Chuck Tatum, it does make me wonder, in a story like this, who would we call the antagonist? So many of our noir stories up to this point, it generally has been the femme fatale. In this case, I don't think I would call Lorraine the antagonist of the story. She's a very interesting femme fatale in the sense of the word, as far as how it's been in our last few films. But she's kind of this femme fatale because of the situation that she's in. She married into it, and she's just unhappy. I mean, she's really just living in an unhappy marriage and essentially wants out. Sees Chuck Tatum as this method to actually change her situation. Just like Herbie, she kind of latches onto that positive side of him and starts seeing stuff, although hers does get a little darker. And eventually she finds a way to escape. But in her actions, in her attitude, in her relationship with Chuck, she still very much is the femme fatale, even if I still don't think that she's the antagonist. And to that point, and to that end, who would the antagonist be? Is it Boot? I don't think he's in it enough to qualify as the antagonist. I mean, maybe you can just say Chuck is his own antagonist. I'm not quite sure.
Wow, I don't even know how to address that. I think you're right. I agree. It's not. It is not Lorraine. It's not Jane Sterling. It's. Wow.
I mean, if anything, I guess you could argue it's Leo. It's what Leo represents, and that's the fight that Chuck is. He's manipulating psychologically the whole situation with the antagonist. Even that I think is a little weak, because Leo is really just kind of reluctantly laying there. I don't think he puts up enough of a psychological battle opposite Chuck to get out.
No, I totally agree with you. He's an object. We don't have anybody who is actively fighting against Chuck, right? We really don't, besides himself. At the very end, when the turn comes and he comes to recognize that he has made, I don't think he comes to recognize he's made a mistake. He's made a strategic error and needs to rescue his narrative by rescuing Leo. He has to come to terms with the fact that it's too late, that he's missed his ticking clock, which was never really ticking. Like, they never set that up as a thing. But the time we've passed the point of no return, and it is impossible now to do the other easier, more efficient way to get Leo out of the cave, shore up the walls, and actually drag him out, because they have been drilling for so long and they've weakened the mine. And so at that point, he really has to come to terms with the fact that he's killed a man. Mm-hmm. And, at that point, we don't get any sort of, well, I don't know. I get, how do you feel about the way it plays out after that? I mean, it's sort of the sequence of remorse, his expression of remorse.
Mm-hmm. I find it pretty powerful. The interesting thing about Chuck is I feel like there's something in him right from the start that knows he's choosing the wrong path, right?
Yeah.
He's definitely immoral because he's aware of what he's doing. He knows he's making the wrong choice and goes along with it anyway. And right from the start, as he continues down this path, you can see his anger, like his physical expression of anger just kind of continues to rise. From early on, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, as if he's hating himself more and more because of what he's doing. Like there's something in him that makes this anger kind of bubble up. And I think it's expressed in some really interesting ways, like when he grabs her hair in that interesting shot right before, I suppose I would say it becomes the sex scene, or at least a kiss in a very sadistic sort of way.
An expression of violence, the way he kisses her.
Yep. And then it builds to this end when he realizes that Leo is dying, and he's only has one choice now, and that's to he can't get him out, so he basically has to go get the priest. In the process, taking it out on Lorraine, nearly killing her, getting stabbed by her. Then he goes to get the priest, brings him back, has the last rites with Leo as Leo dies, hops on the platform to go up to the top of the mountain, and then he addresses his public. I really like that whole sequence. I really feel like it's almost like he's a dead man from the moment Lorraine stabbed him, and all of that is like this sense of this dead man walking, and it's like the last things that he has to accomplish before he completely dies. And I find it really compelling how just kind of driven he is. Like there's nothing else for him at this point. It's just kind of this slow slog as he pushes himself along.
I agree with you there, and I think from the point of violence against Lorraine, and I love that exchange too, because the way that happens, we know something has happened, right? We had already seen the scissors had been spotlighted on the bed, right? We'd seen those very clearly. We saw her hand reach back for them. We don't actually see the stab itself. It's hidden. He does he kind of hides it, but there is that kind of crunchy sound, the stabby crunchy sound. And then he kind of backs up. There's that look of kind of awareness. She has this wonderful look of just kind of fear and curiosity, which I thought was really powerful. And I'm not a fan of her performance in this film, but that sequence I thought was really quite good. That look of maniacal curiosity. I don't know what I just did, but it felt kind of good. And now I don't know what's going to happen next. I really enjoyed that. And then you're right. He goes off, and this becomes his penance. And for me, this is where the film gets, more interesting than the rest of it. I like the way, as you said, he's that dead man walking. I thought that was a really nice touch, and all the way up to the final moments of the film, I thought were really terrific as he goes back to work, and he tells his little buddy to Herbie to sit down. That's your desk. And then he falls. That's just a really powerful way to end the film.
Well, especially with the parallels between him and Leo, which I find so fascinating. I mean, right from the start, Chuck is essentially the same as Leo. He is buried in this place and he can't escape, right? He is stuck and wants to get out and is trying to find a way out. And so it's a very interesting parallel between him and Leo, and how there's this great shot right toward the end with Leo, where the dirt kind of keeps falling on him, and Leo's face just is so blackened from kind of all the dirt and everything that he's just kind of become this shadow of a man laying there under the mountain. And right there at the end, when Chuck has his last little speech to boot about, you can have me for nothing, and he collapses on the floor, his face falls into shadow, and he essentially has become Leo buried under the mountain. I think that there's just this incredible symbolism comparing these two characters all through it that I find really fascinating.
That's a really nice touch. I hadn't thought through it that way. I really, that's a really nice parallel.
Yeah, and it's it just runs all the way through, just the shadows of everything, and right from the start, you see the film beginning with all the credits just on dirt. You just see this dirt just sitting there, and you just feel like right from the start we're just buried under it. And this is something that I think is really interesting in the noir that we've kind of touched on a little bit, but so much of the others have involved crime. There's this there's just a dark psychology in film noir that I think does kind of run through so many of these films that I think is so important to touch on, and how it doesn't have to necessarily be this let's kill my husband sort of story, but just this dark psychology of what people can do. And I think that's why this is a wonderful representation of film noir, is that Chuck is in this dark place, and he's willing to go to this level of keeping this man buried underground for 7 days in order to get a great story out of it. And it's this incredible dark psychology that makes this a really beautiful, beautifully dark film noir.
I agree with you, although I would just add that this really at its core is also a let's kill my husband story. I mean, it's not as if Lorraine is looking to really do right by Leo as he's sitting underground. Well,
yeah, I don't think she cares one way or the other if he gets out or not.
She just uses this as a way to get away. Yeah. So, but I do agree with you, and I think this is a great example of that when you take the caper away from these films that defines the stereotype of film noir, what you get is a film in which at no point do better angels step in. This is a film about what happens when no one listens to their best judgment. And I think that makes it really interesting to see how the pieces fall together.
Well, it's a tragedy looking at, I mean, this is a man making really poor decisions to get this story, but then it's this tragedy looking at everybody else in the film just going right along with it. All of the other reporters, they're only there to get the same story. None of them think to look at Chuck and if Chuck might be involved in a darker undercover thing, like between the whole deal that Chuck's made between him and the sheriff, and the whole reason that they're mining from the top. I mean, all of this stuff. They just want to get the hot story, just like Chuck does. They don't even think to go that way. All of these people coming to look. I mean, the Friedhofers, I think, are a wonderful representation of America. These guys are more interested in they're there to see the story and to kind of teach their children something. But at the same time, when they're getting interviewed, Al Friedhofer cares more about the fact that he was the first one there. He and his family were the first people at the site, rather than Leo. It's all about the attention, and it's getting that press and getting your time in the spotlight. And I mean, even Leo, when Chuck talks to him about the paper and stuff, Leo's it's almost like lifts his spirits so much just to think, wow, all these people are here just for me. It's it's such an interesting way of looking at people and how people react to that moment in the spotlight and how it can become addicting. And I mean, we certainly saw that with Sheriff Joe when we were working with him, and Chuck is the exact same. I mean, I think that he cares. He proves it to us by his conversation with the head of the New York paper. It's not just about the paycheck. It's about having that desk back at that office.
Right. Having
it's
the honor.
That status. It's the status. Right.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Billy.
Yes,
shall we? Billy Wilder. This film, this comes off of Sunset Boulevard, was right before this. Is that right?
Yep.
Which was it was a pretty terrific film, Sunset Boulevard. Terrific. This film did not do as well.
No, this film was, I think, his biggest box office flop.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
It's dark. This is a really dark film, and Billy, Kirk Douglas, a lot of people have talked about what they think happened. I mean, this is a film that is just scathing toward journalists and a lot of critics. Because of that, it's like they like stories that examine the dark side of people, unless it's their own people. They have a hard time, acknowledging that. I mean, that's I think a big part of it. And also, it was just a very dark story for people to watch. You know, the dark things that people would do. I think it came out at a time where people just didn't want to see that sort of story. And it's I think it says a lot that in Europe it was received really well. It won a bunch of awards at the Venice Film Festival. It really it is a film that I just don't think people were ready for.
It's a funny thing. I mean, you're thinking about sort of what was going on at the time, and I think to your point, we've talked about this before. I look at these films in many ways as if they're, this is Billy Wilder holding a mirror right up to us, saying, "I want you to look at this, and I'm going to make it big, and I'm going to put big signs on it, and it's going to be incredibly hyperbolic, and it may seem ridiculous at points, but it's because I want you to look at this message, and this is really important. This is my voice, and I'm showing you what I think of the world right now." But when you're holding up that mirror to the people who are holding the mirror, like that often doesn't make a good sense. But we're looking at, this was we're still integrating at this point, 1951. We're still integrating the 10.5 million people who had returned from the war. We're dealing with like this boom bust sort of economy. We're dealing with this incredible, incredibly large workforce and precious jobs to keep them occupied. Like there was a lot of turmoil going on in the world, in people's homes. And I think one of the things that happens when you're looking at a film like this that has no caper. And I think this is central for at least my understanding of the film. Once you get rid of the caper, it becomes much, much more real. And when you're looking at the press, something that people have an understanding of, whether it's right or wrong, they see their papers every day. It seems like a real, tangible thing. Once you remove the drama of the caper and you make this a profession that we can reach out and touch in our own ways, that makes it much less appealing in a time of cultural struggle. And that to me is one potential reason why this film didn't meet with instant box office success here. We were having a hard time, and it's a hard time to make a movie about hard times. What do you think?
If it says anything, the best picture of the year was An American in Paris.
It says a lot.
It says a lot.
All right.
I don't think I think it took a long time for. I think it really, I'd have to go back and look at all of the different Best Picture winners and nominees, but I really feel like it took some time into the 70s, probably Vietnam, before people were ready to kind of look at darker stories and well, on a bigger scale, as far as like the box office, the big ones. I just don't think people were wanting to see such a dark story.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Or a dark story that is so, practical. I mean, we have High Noon. We have, Roman Holiday. Oh, 1953. We had 2 wins, didn't we? Roman Holiday and Shane.
Well, this was 1951 though.
I know. I'm just going through the 50s.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Roman Holiday? No, that didn't win Best Picture.
Why does that have a star by it on the Academy Awards site?
I don't know.
What does that mean when they get a little star? Oh no, that doesn't mean that's not what that means. That means something different. All right, they have a legend.
I think it went from An American in Paris to The Greatest Show on Earth, which I think is one of the worst Best Picture winners.
Right, and From Here to Eternity.
But they're all like these really shiny. I mean, I don't know about if From Here to Eternity fits quite so much, but
On the Waterfront, Marty, your favorite.
There you go. Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, I don't think it was quite the time for this movie.
Yeah.
In many ways, I think this movie was ahead of its time.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Yeah,
I think that's probably fair. All right, do you want to talk any more about Kirk?
Kirk is great. I mean, he's just fantastic to watch. This is I think this was his he had started like what do we say? It was his second film when he was in what did we talk about last week? Out of the Past. Yeah. That was his second film, and his first big chance to really carry a film was 1949. That was Champion, and that was another dark story. He's that one is about boxer Midge Kelly rising to fame mainly by stepping on other people. And so I think Kirk Douglas really had a penchant for playing darker characters that he could really get into. And so this was only a couple years after that. I mean, he had 3 films in 1951, so it was a busy year for him. But I think that something that I've always loved about him, aside from his just over the topness and his bravado and just his and his dimply chin, is just, I mean, he just bites onto a role and just goes whole hog. And it's just, I always have such a great time watching him and just, seeing him carry a film. And I think he's just perfect in this role of this guy who's just gone down a really dark path, hates himself for it, but continues to go down it, and is really, just destined for a disaster. I think he plays it so well. I have such a great time watching him in this film. And I just think he's great. Did you know that his name is Isur Danielovich Demsky, by the way?
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Isur Danielovich Demsky.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. I can see maybe why he didn't stick with that.
Why he gave it a switcheroo. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great name. Okay, let's talk just about briefly about Lorraine, Jan Sterling.
Oh,
I thought she was a drip.
That's interesting because I think that's her character. I find her so interesting to watch because I find her such a I don't want to say lethargic, but she's just...
You said it, and I'm recording. That's a great way to define her character. And I think generally lethargy on screen is not a good strategy to create, what's the word, drama.
Yeah, but I don't think it is lethargy. I find there's something about her that is just like, it's bitter and weary is kind of what I find her. And I don't know. And maybe it's, this film just hit me on all the right levels this time because I felt she was perfect, and I really just loved this bitter anger kind of wallowing under her and just kind of looking for a way out, latching onto any opportunity to get out. I really enjoyed her in this. And, she's an Oscar-nominated actress. A few years later, she was nominated for The High and the Mighty.
Right.
So.
Right. And I'm not saying that I don't like the character. I really, maybe it's her performance in it that I find difficult to watch, or maybe I find that she was given a character that was empty. But I found her interactions with, anyway, even up to when he starts to strangle her with the rat fur coat, the rat fur stole, I found it was not compelling until she stabs him and we get to see that transformation in the bedroom. I find her she drags every scene that I'm watching her, and I'm just waiting for it to be over.
Well, you would have to argue with the National Board of Review because they gave her the Best Actress Award of the year.
That's really unfortunate that they were bought off. I'm sure they were paid. She went from here to Guiding Light. You know that, 1952.
That's interesting.
She was on Guiding Light, yeah. In addition to a obviously substantial list of credits through 1988, she was still acting.
Oh yes, very busy actress.
Very busy actress. So I have not seen much of her other stuff. What else?
She played Judge Sheffield in Three's Company.
Well, I guess I've seen that.
Yeah, it's surprising a lot of TV stuff that I am certain to have seen her in.
Yeah.
That I just, But I don't know. I feel like just scrolling through her list, I don't think I've seen much of it.
Not much. Mm-mm. Anyway, all right. Let's see. Who else would you like to talk about? Anybody else in the cast that you feel like we need to make special note?
Well, I think we should mention Porter Hall.
Oh, we should probably do that.
Mr. Boot. He popped up in Double Indemnity as well.
He did.
He was the man on the train.
I'd forgotten you actually made note that we were going to be talking about Porter Hall again.
I did?
I think you did. Because you know these things.
Oh, that I forgot.
Seriously.
Oh, that's so funny. But he's one of those faces. He's one of those supporting actors who is just in everything. He was in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington back in the 30s. He was just in Going My Way. I'm just kind of scrolling through his stuff. Miracle on 34th Street. He's one of those faces that you recognize. He's just a very great face that works so well as a supporting character. And so it's definitely nice to just see him popping up here and there.
He is. He's. It was fun to watch him and his interactions with Kirk Douglas. I think are amusing, particularly the the opening sequence. Can you just walk through the opening sequence where Chuck Tatum introduces himself to the newspaper?
Well, I think it's just I mean, it's very, very loud. I think is Chuck Tatum's way. But I first of all, this is another interesting point, is I love how Chuck is always making stories work for him. And I think that there's no better way to symbolize that than how he manipulates a typewriter. One, to get Herbie's attention by pushing the button so it dings like a bell on his desk.
Right.
And two, to use it to light his matches for his cigarettes. Like
that was so classy.
I know. Like,
I wanted to go get the Smith Corona out just for that. And I don't smoke.
Just to light the match with it.
So good.
But it's a great way to show this guy is always ready to manipulate a story. He uses stories to his advantage. And I just love that about him. But the whole introduction to Boot, I think, is great. Presaged by the fantastic embroidered "Tell the Truth" thing on the wall outside of his door, which is wonderful to see that there. And also as a man who wears both belt and suspenders, because he just, he doesn't trust the situation, And there's so much great stuff that you see about Boot. But I think it's really interesting because Boot is, while you could say he represents truth and honesty and the right way, I think there's also this level, and this is why I find it really interesting, these personalities here. There's an interesting yin-yang between them because Boot also is kind of this dead, represents this dead paper where nothing is happening. It's just withering and kind of dying in Albuquerque. They're going to report on, the rattlesnake, the annual rattlesnake hunt, and nothing that's interesting. And I find that so interesting that Boot is all about telling the truth, but he is, but it's portrayed in his office as inactivity and passivity.
I think you're right, and I think we get this in their first conversation when Charles comes in and says, "Mr. Boot, I was passing through Albuquerque. I had breakfast here. I read your paper, and I thought you'd be interested in my reaction." "Indeed I am," Boot says. "Well, to be honest, it made me throw up." Which is fantastic. I don't mean to tell you I was expecting the New York Times, but even for Albuquerque, this is pretty Albuquerque. And Boot says, not that he's necessarily interested in the truth, not that he's willing to get this feedback, but he reaches in the drawer and he pulls out his box and he says, "All right, here's your nickel back." Because that was the value of that exchange, right? I'm not interested. What that says is, I'm not interested in your feedback. I'm not even interested in debate. That ship has sailed. And really, I'm just interested in you figuring out how to make me more money, which is what he goes on to say. Tell me about this $250, and otherwise I need you to take off. Which I thought is interesting. I think that's a good way to look at his role. He's representative of the old.
Yeah, it's very passive. And I found that to be an interesting yin-yang in his character. And I love how he and Chuck both have an interesting yin-yang, giving their character a better fleshed out sense, I found.
I think so too. And he ends up, ultimately betraying the old, betraying the old by selling out to the big New York paper and that is another kind of milestone in their transformation, in that sort of yin yang as he jumps off the wheel.
Well, an interesting element of Boot is as somebody who wants to report the truth, and this may have worked better for you, giving him more of that antagonist role for Chuck, of getting suspicious that something was going on and actively working to uncover the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's astute. I don't mean astute. I don't know what that is.
I like to be astute.
I remember when I was astute.
I don't like to be the astute.
No. One among many. I think you have a good point, but I've lost the thread. What was your point?
The fact that, just saying that Boot is really, it makes for a great antagonist that may not have been utilized as well as the writers could have utilized him.
Yes, I remember now. I agree.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Okay. From Porter Hall, we've talked a little bit about Robert Arthur as Herbie, the photographer. He's a fun little sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Friedhofers.
Yes. Frank Cady as Mr. Friedhofer, who he is somebody who popped up in Green Acres and
Rear Window.
Rear
Window, Petticoat Junction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's
the
another one of those
duck.
faces. Yeah, the $1 million duck. He is another one of those faces, and he's been in a lot of TV. And finally, we have, let's see, Leo. We haven't really talked about Richard Benedict.
Right.
As Leo.
Yeah, he's
also a robust catalog.
He does have a robust catalog, and he's there's another. What is that great noir that he's in? Crossfire. It's Crossfire. Yeah.
But what's funny is that he did. I mean, this is one of the things that his bio points out. He was given. He has a look that you don't get to see in this film very well, but his look is kind of the tough guy look. And he was in Hawaii Five-0. He was in, he's in a lot of these more tough guy roles. And but in this film, you don't get that. You get him in a weakened state. He's only laying down in the dirt the entire time, and he has a couple of sort of menacing outbursts. But otherwise, he's a weakened character. And I thought he did a terrific job in what has to have been challenging circumstances.
I kept wondering how he goes to the bathroom. That's just how uncomfortable that has to be for 7 days, laying in that one spot. How stinky.
Yeah, no one ever made a comment about the stench.
Right.
That is
walk up to it. How you doing, Lee? Woo!
Whoa!
Wow! Oh, it's terrible. That's terrible.
Oh, that is funny. Anyhow, so that was Richard Benedict, the Italian,
and Ray Teal, the sheriff. I think he's great. I think he represents that corrupt sheriffs that I know so well. With his rattlesnake in a box.
That was one of the funniest little side bits, that he actually caught the baby rattlesnake and was feeding it steak.
Whatever he could. Chewing gum, but only if it's still in the silver wrapper.
That was pretty good. He's been in a lot of interesting stuff, and his filmography is extensive. Of the batch, he's the one that breaks 300.
Yeah,
and he's played a lot of ranchers, a lot of sheriffs, but he was also in Judgment at Nuremberg.
Right.
Right. He's been around. I thought his exchange when he is talking with the press and they're really grilling him on why Chuck gets to go into the mine and they don't get to go into the mine. I mean, you already brought this up. There's that sort of cultural element, which is, we're the media and we want what everybody else gets. But his response was such a wonderful sort of legal brick wall. That just saying over and over again, it's off limits, or out of bounds. I can't remember what he said. No, what was the word he said over and over? What?
I'm not sure.
Oh, you're not sure either. All right. Anyhow, I thought it was just a really, it was just a great role. I think he is Interesting character.
Definitely.
All right. I do want to mention the music, because that one's been on my mind all day.
Oh, yes. I loved the music.
I did too. I love the music, and this is Hugo Friedhofer did the music, and he was fantastic. It was just a great, great, great score. He's been all over the place in terms of his involvement in great scores, but this one, I thought it was just really well used, and his adaptation of that central theme, it comes back over and over and over again, either in a different rhythm or a different key or a different orchestration. I mean, it's just really clever use of that main central theme that we meet in the very opening credits, and I thought it was just great. I couldn't get it out of my head. It's a really wonderful score.
Well, and I like how he integrates that song that gets written for Leo.
Yes.
Which became a little, earworm for me for a little while after I saw this movie. Just walking around, oh, Leo.
That was a funny bit too, as they were. It starts out as a close up on the country singer singing the song, and as they pull out, you see somebody right next to him with a hat on that says, 25 cents per sheet music, and she's selling the sheet music to the song that they wrote to commercialize Leo. I thought it was just great.
It's and it's so true. It's just so true. People will just latch on to whatever they can to make a buck,
right?
Or a quarter in this case. But it was just it was dark and really interesting, and I loved how he took that tone, which is a very cheery, chipper song, but was able to kind of find the darker tones for it and integrate it at times into the music as well.
Yes, totally agree. Hugo did some great work.
There was a conversation that Billy Wilder had with Hugo about the music, because Billy Wilder initially was a little upset with Hugo that he didn't have enough themes in here, like just themes that you could hum. And Hugo, he said, he's like, well, Billy, what, you want me to soften the blow? And I think that's all it took to sell Wilder on keeping the music the way it was, because it does have an incredible blow to your gut as you're listening. I think the music is just so effective in delivering on all counts.
Yeah, it really stands out.
Yeah.
Cinematography, Charles Lang. How do you feel about the camera?
I really liked it in this. Not just, Wilder is not somebody who ever wanted the camera in interesting angles. He always believed that the camera needs to be, where people are, and doesn't want any crazy camera work. He really kind of kept it pretty straightforward. To that end, though, I think Lang really knew how to manipulate the light and shadow to create this dark and noirish world. There's just incredible use of shadow all through, whether it's shadow in situations like when they're in the mine, or in a room and just the lights from the room, or when somebody else's shadow crosses somebody else, over somebody else. And there's some beautiful shots. Like there's a great shot of Lorraine as she's talking to Chuck, and Chuck's face just falls into shadow. That is really haunting, as you can kind of get a sense that he is in this darker place. And one of my favorite shots in the film is toward the end when Chuck is talking with Herbie, and he's this is a point where he's about to die, and nobody's believing him because he's got his ace in the hole now, which is the fact that he wants to sell his story, the fact that this reporter who created this whole thing, which I think is an incredible little bit there. But he looks at Herbie and is like, "You believe me, don't you?" And his face crosses over Herbie's face, and Herbie's face just is covered by this shadow of Chuck. That as Herbie says, "Yes, I believe you." And I'm like, man, that is just an incredible way to play with the shadows in a scene like that, where you just see this character who's been really positive, and I don't know if he fully understands what Chuck's doing. I think he can get a sense of something askew with Chuck's methodologies, but at the same time, Herbie is kind of getting a chance to get his photos seen and become get national attention. But then when he finally gets this story from Chuck as to what Chuck's really been doing, and just that shadow on his face really, I think, said everything to me.
I think so too. That's a great way to Great way to frame that sequence. Speaking of camera movement, I think you're right. It's a really I would say conservative camera generally, and yet there is a sequence in the beginning that gives me such a wonderful sense of place. It's when they pull over the car, and this great old convertible, and they pull over the car and they pick up Lorraine and they drive down this road, and the camera is really, really high. It must be on some sort of a nice tall kind of boom mount on the car as they drive down this road, and you get a sense of just where these mountain caves are in relationship to the restaurant / general store, and I just loved that. It's like a sweet little sequence, and I found myself thinking about it all day long. Like it's just a great use of bodies, framed right in the middle. It's very sort of photographic, and I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, did they look like real car shots to you, or did they look like they might have been process shots?
Well, this one did. This one, and I actually remember thinking about that. I thought this looks like they're driving up this road. I mean, it didn't look like process shot to me.
Yeah.
Did it to you? I mean, is that what you're saying? You think I'm
No, I'm
crazy?
just curious. But I'm just curious because I know at the time I don't think there was a lot. In fact, next week when we talk about to give people a hint, but Touch of Evil's next week. And my understanding was that was one of the first films where they actually filmed like people in a car. Yeah, there's no way that this was a process shot.
Right?
I'm just looking at it again with the car bouncing like it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it looks pretty authentic to me. So well, interesting.
Well, so much for Touch of Evil.
That's right. Ace in the Hole totally takes the cake. Although I will say, the thing that doesn't make it look authentic to me of the two shot of them in the back seat is the fact that we're looking straight out the back of the car, and we're not seeing the road behind them. The car would have to be driving at a very weird angle to make that work.
Well, that's true. Are we thinking of the same sequence though? I mean, are you looking at the one?
It's right after they pick her up.
Okay, so yeah, all right.
And first you have that great shot where it looks like the camera is mounted on the back of the car.
Yes.
Overhead, but then it immediately cuts to a two shot,
which is probably processed,
which looks like a process shot.
Yeah.
The more I look at it, it doesn't look like there's any way that the road they would be moving the wrong way in order for that shot to make sense.
Exactly, and that's why I really was thinking about that high arm shot. That's the one I was really more excited about. In the cars didn't feel as much as interesting, although some of them are. I guess I don't know. It was done well.
The one behind it actually reminds me of the shot from Out of the Past, because we see a very similar shot. It has that GoPro feel almost.
Yes.
Because Out of the Past begins that way. When we first meet Stefano,
you're right,
as he's coming into town, we see that same high angle shot. I don't know if it's quite this high, but that same behind him shot on the car as he's rolling into town.
Yep. Oh man, that's interesting. Yeah. So it's I enjoyed the camera on this one. Charles. Yeah. We'll be talking about him again.
Excellent.
Yes. Anybody else stands out to you that you really, really want to talk about as we?
Well, I don't know how much I have to say, but it did get nominated for Best Story and Screenplay for Best at the Academy Awards, and that was for Billy Wilder and his two co-writers, Lesser Samuels, not the greater Samuels, the lesser Samuels, and Walter Newman. That's just terrible.
He's never heard that before.
I'm sure.
Never heard that. That was the first.
Yes, but obviously, as we said, it didn't. It was not. I mean, I was surprised it actually got nominated for anything, considering it seemed like people just didn't want this movie to exist really at the time. I mean, even the head of the studio renamed it The Big Carnival to try to trick people into seeing it, thinking it might be a different movie playing. Because I guess movies with big in the title, like The Big Steal, big was a word in titles, like the Big Clock, The Big Sleep, that somehow made it seem like a crime movie. And so the head of the studio thought, well, maybe they'll think it's a crime movie and they'll go see it if it's called The Big Carnival, but it didn't work.
But I think what the most interesting thing about that is that he changed the name without telling Billy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Probably not a good relationship move.
No, not
You're
really.
cultivating your best relationships with your creative partners. That's not
That's
that's like the last step after all other steps. The anti-step. In terms of, did you find out anything about the money?
All I found was the budget. I couldn't find anything as far as how much it made or didn't make, as the case may be. But this film did cost about $1.8 million to make. Of that, I heard that Billy got $250,000 of that. So in today's dollars, it's about a $16.3 million budget, and at $250,000, that means Billy got $2.2 million for it. So,
all right, so it did all right for him.
It did all right for him, and Billy says that this is his best movie. He and I are in the same camp on that. After watching this again, this bumped all the way up to the top of my Billy Wilder list.
Wow. I need to go watch my Billy Wilder again because I just can't bring myself to agree.
Well, and that's okay. I just I really connected with this film. I think it was a solid film.
I hear it. I hear it in your voice. A lot of passion. All right. Let's rank it, can we?
Let's do it.
All right. Head over to flickchart.com/the next reel, everybody, and you can see our stack rankings of our very favorite films. I think we're up to this is 183.
This one is is going to be 180.
180. How is that possible? I guess we've done this. We've been on this rodeo before. So that's what you need to do, and you should friend us and like us and hang out with us there on Flickchart, and let's just see if our stack rankings add up to your stack rankings. Andrew?
Let's do it. All right, Ace in the Hole or Hot Fuzz?
Hot Fuzz.
I'll do Ace in the Hole on this one.
Okay, I'm going to give it to you because I'm not that. I'm sort of joking because Hot Fuzz is on Netflix today, and I got kind of excited about that.
Well, I love Hot Fuzz. It's so much fun to watch, but Ace in the Hole just a punch in the gut in the best way. Ace in the Hole or Sleepless in Seattle? I am back at Ace in the Hole.
All right.
Ace in the Hole or Double Indemnity?
Double Indemnity.
Noir Billy Wilder action going on here. I am Ace in the Hole.
I'm really Double Indemnity on this one. Like
we're
how?
We're gonna have to rock paper scissors this one. Oh yeah,
let's do it.
Okay, one, two, three.
Water.
Water.
I think I just. All right, I'm gonna have to do that again. What is this game? What is it? This is not that funny. I misspoke. All right, rock paper scissors water. It's a variant of the game that we used to play in Prague when I was a boy, and this is not that funny. All right, are you ready? Have you controlled yourself?
Elephant. Oh, it's awesome.
There's only three choices, right?
Okay. Yes, let's try it again. Ready?
All right.
Okay. 1,
2, 3. Scissors. Okay.
Ooh, look at that.
1, 2, 3. Rock.
Paper. Yes.
You cheated.
I did not cheat.
You read my mind. That's cheating.
Yes, I did read your mind. Hey, I will say something that I forgot to mention is Mr. Friedhofer works for the All Risk company that Fred McMurray's character works for in Double Indemnity.
From Double Indemnity. Yeah. Excellent catch.
A nice little nod.
Yes.
Now here's one that's a little tougher for me. Ace in the Hole or Brazil?
Brazil.
I will do Brazil.
It's not that tough.
Ace in the Hole or $1 Million Baby?
$1 Million Baby.
I would do Ace in the Hole, but I'm going to give you $1 Million Baby.
All right, thank you. It's very kind of you.
Ace in the Hole or The Matrix?
The Matrix.
Man, I was just listening to the Matrix music at work today. Really
it's like it was meant to be.
Yeah, but I'm torn. I feel like I want to go with Ace in the Hole, but I actually am going to give you The Matrix. I'll give you The Matrix on this one. Ace in the Hole or The Fisher King?
Well, I'm Fisher King, but I could be swayed. No, I'm really the Fisher King.
Mighty fine Terry Gilliam.
It really, it's fine. I'm not. I'm
going to do Fisher King.
Yeah.
All right, Ace in the Hole or The French Connection?
French Connection.
I'm actually going to go Ace in the Hole on this one.
Are you serious?
Surprisingly, I am.
All right, rack it up. Rock, paper, scissors, water.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think so much going on in this film. There's like so much being said, so much to think about in this film. And French Connection, don't get me wrong, is a fantastic kick-ass film. But Ace in the Hole just really kind of stirred my brain. So
stir your brain.
I know my brain needed a good stirring.
Clearly. All right, rack it up.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Mm-hmm. One, two, three.
Rock.
Paper.
Damn.
Suck it.
All right. Well, there you go. Number 23.
Jeez, too high.
Whatever. You cynic.
Too high. But all right.
I think it's too low.
I'm going to be working on moving that down. Every movie we do from now on is going to be my top 20 favorite movie ever.
There we go.
All right. Well, this was good. So you've already hinted at where we're going from here, but I think you should hint some more.
Yes, we're going to tap into Little Orson Welles, and we're going to watch his wonderful film, Touch of Evil.
The O-dub, as we call him in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
The O-dub.
Are you going to watch both versions, you think?
We'll see on time. I guess that's a good question. So if I don't, what we should talk about that, right? We should plan that. Which version are you going to watch?
Oh, well, I'm gonna really push to watch both of them. But I would say if you aren't going to be able to watch both, just focus on watching the re-edited version that was released in '98.
Okay. All right. I'll do it.
Excellent.
I will do it. All right.
You better.
I think that's all we've got to say. Don't forget, we've got a special film board coming up. It's going to be a full house. We got everybody. Everybody's going to be there. All the people talking about Child 44, which may or may not earn everybody.
That's right.
So we'll see.
Right.
All right. That's it. That's all I got. I got to go to bed.
All right. I'm going to go find a pot buried in this big hole I found in the backyard. I think it's an old Indian ruin.
I'm going to go ahead and go first because I feel like yours is going to need to settle in.
Okay, that sounds good.
Mine's easy, and it falls right in line with what with what I feel like from Paul. He gives it a 3-star review. He says it's too wicked for his taste. Many of Billy Wilder's movies are top-notch in Paul's opinion, but this one doesn't deliver. Its lead character is just too ambitious and uncaring for this story to be rewarding to the viewer. Unsympathetic characters have their place in movies, but usually there are a few more moments where we can see the humanity behind the cold-blooded front. So there you go.
Wow.
Paul has a remarkably sane approach for an Amazon commenter.
Yeah.
Well
don't
done,
see that
Paul.
very often.
It's really rational and well done. Please tell me yours.
And then there's mine. Well, this is, I think, a nice reminder of last week's show because this is also by Judith Perry, Oreo Lover, who gave it 1 star and said, "This is stashed as a Christmas gift." That's all she has to say. I think we had some good reminders last week from folks about, what an awful gift giver she is if she waits for her 1-star movies to come along before deciding to give it out. There's a few good comments, which I think is the joy of reading her wonderfully short reviews. Steve Cohn says, "This review shows why I don't support the right to vote by everyone. But then I come back to Churchill's great quote about democracy." So, which is good that he has that in mind. And then Judy Fryer says, "You appear to mistakenly believe this is a place for reminders about your gifts. The least you can do is not always give the films on your list of personal notes just 1 star. And then Mojo Navigator says, why did you actually put this up? In what way did you think this would be helpful to anyone? And what makes you think any of us care whether this is a gift or not? This is a public forum, not your personal diary. Also, you cannot possibly be so stupid that you don't understand that the purpose of the review system is to review the item and select the relevant star that reflects your opinion. Bottom line, if you don't know anything about a product, don't put up a review, especially a 1-star one.
Poor Judith. I actually would say that I think Will Be a Gift is a fair commentary for a film you don't like.
But it does say a lot about you as a gift giver.
It really does. It says that you are a terrible gift giver, but it doesn't say... And I would like to add that if you go to... You can click right through to JP's other reviews, and the only other 1-star thing that is on there is for a gray Dickens Victorian men's cape, which gets a hearty thumbs down, saying, this cape was not at all what it was described to be. I didn't take it out of the wrapper and returned it immediately. Note, it was A, not regifted, but B, it was returned before it was opened and yet still assessed as not what it was promised.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of that. I just find it, the rest of the reviews are really, they serve the role of the review system. So
well, the rest of them are almost all 5 stars.
Jewelry. There's jewelry. There's we've gone way too far on this one now.
Yeah, we really have.
There's a great collection of the Clash music.
To the Perry Oreo lover.
Doc Martin boot review. They were actually a Christmas gift for her son, but they did not fit, so she returned them. But she's a Doc Martens fan. So she rates them 5 stars anyway.
Because they must be good.
Right? They're docs.
Oh, so funny.
Amazon.
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first Film Noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe's series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.